order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning. So we have, this is permission to use delegate's name? Permission granted. Good morning. This is Delegate Barnes' beautiful baby from Appropriations. It's actually his chief of staff. His chief of staff. and Delegate Barnes, do you want to introduce him, please?
Yes, Jewel. Hey, this is my chief of staff, Jewel's baby here, and he is 4 months old, 3 months old now. 5 months old, and she's just coming back to us last week, so welcome her back. Thank you.
Isn't he beautiful? Right? He's so beautiful. Look at him. He says, good morning, everyone. Yes. So good morning, everyone. Before we start prayer today, I want to just say, I hope our day is blessed. We are going to have some difficult things on the floor, some difficult bills. We are going to have a rules meeting, some bills that will come to the floor. All I asked between today and Monday is that, again, you make your arguments in a respectful way and realize that we have different views, but let's just try to be respectful, okay? I try very hard during the session, during the session to manage the floor with Michelle's help and Patrick in the clerk's office so that at the end of the session we don't end up with big stuff. But sometimes things happen, you can't control it, right? It's part of life. I always say if you came to HEO that we need to be Gumby, we need to be flexible. So on behalf of the Speaker Pro Tem and I, who's been really wonderful in helping me do this, I just ask you to keep that in mind and let's try to be respectful today and Monday, okay? And thank you for your hard work. The prayer today will be offered by the delegate from Prince George's County.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Good to see you all. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the joy that a child continues to remind us, God, that you have given us all the breath of life. And we thank you for that honor. We thank you for today as we continue to do the work of your people here in Maryland, God, that we remember those who, just like this young child, is unable to vote, but still relies upon us to ensure that they are cared for, God. Let us remember those in the hospital who we continue to ensure that they have health care. Let us remember those who are unhoused, who want to ensure that they have a place to live, God. Let's remember those who are hungry to ensure that they continue to have food to eat, oh God. And even as the Senate is out of session, oh God, let us not lose hope. Let us not have anxiety, God, but let us remain calm in the midst of it all, that we know that our bills still have life. That there is life after death. And nonetheless, there is still Monday, and we look forward to that glorious day when we shall all come together at 11:59 p.m. to say we have done the best that we could do.
We have.
It's in your name we pray.
Amen. Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their presence? Give people a minute to reach their seats. Okay, thank you, Bobby. The clerk will take the call. There being 122 members present, the House is now in session. The clerk will read the journal from the previous day.
Annapolis, Maryland, March the 26th, 2026.
recognizing the Deputy Majority Leader.
Yes, I'm on it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Madam
Good
Speaker.
morning.
So much be considered, the reading of the journal.
So order petitions, memorials, and other papers. Message from the Senate. Senate bills introduced in the House. The clerk will read the bills and committee assignments.
Senate Bill 279, Senator Hayes, House Rules. Senate Bill 411, Senator Augustine, House Rules. Senate Bill 611, Senator Mouts, House Rules. Senate Bill 791, Senator Lamb, House Rules. Senate Bill 900, Senator Reedy, House Rules. By order of Sylvia Seeger, Chief Clerk.
So colleagues, we have our last 3 floor presentations for the session this morning. And they are for very special people that serve with us, that deserve to get their flowers while they're here and they're alive, okay? We're gonna start by, I'm gonna recognize the delegate from Montgomery County to do the first one. You're working on it? Okay. How about delegate from Frederick, the minority whip?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So colleagues, I have had the honor of serving as the chairman of the Frederick County delegation for the past 4 years and for a little bit in the previous term. We got a lot of personalities in Frederick, but one individual in particular, it's been a real honor to serve with. Permission to use the delegate's name?
Permission granted.
So our friend, Delegate Ciliberti. So not only has Delegate Ciliberti been an asset to the Frederick County delegation, but we also share the same district, District 4. And in short, you know, people would always ask me back home, what's it like serving with Delegate Ciliberti? You know, he's been there a while, you know, and I'll just give you this very quick little story because the gentleman from Montgomery County did such a heck of a job yesterday. But the Ciliberti and I share the same hotel. And I always try to put into words what it's like serving with Ciliberti. And one day I came out of my hotel room and he unknowingly came out of his hotel room in front of me and he was just whistling and singing along. And it dawned on me that he loves this job. And he loves being down here. He loves serving with all of you. And my response to folks is, I love serving with him. And he's been a good friend. He's been a good supporter of our community. And he'll be sorely missed. So, Madam Speaker, if I could, I would like to yield to my friend permission to use the delegate's name.
Permission granted.
Delegate Miller for some words. Thank you, Ciliberti.
Good morning, delegate.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Permission
welcome.
to use delegate's name.
Permission granted.
I'm going to keep this very short, as he will usually play Italian operas very loudly in our office to stop all of my questions.
Is that what it takes? We'll
That
do
is
that
what
here.
Oh, I should have told. Oh.
You know I love you.
I love you too. So it seems like every day down here I get asked the age-old question, where is Ciliberti? If he is not here, I will tell you he is usually at the diner, a dive, or driving to one. And I can only hope that my next 40 years are as amazing and adventurous as your last 40 have been, sir. And I wish you many, many more with your beautiful wife and family. I will miss you, my dear friend and colleague. I have been blessed to call you an office mate for these 4 years, even though I think most of the time he thought I just worked for him. But you are the man, the myth, and the legend, and the Sil, my friend. And Madam Speaker, may I please yield to the back row caucus chair?
Absolutely.
Good morning, Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Permission to use a delegate's name.
Granted.
So my mother always said, if you can't say something nice about someone, don't say anything. So I assure you this will be very brief. I first met Delegate Ciliberti in 2015 as he shared an office space across from me and quickly learned that no snack provision was safe with Ciliberti around. Despite his affinity for snacks, however, he will continue to remind you that he maintains a savage body. Ciliberti's the man who treats his historic Lincoln Town Car like the tank that he rode in while being in Iraq working for the State Department. It's never met a curb or an obstruction that it didn't move with physical force, and you can verify that with some of the colleagues here in this body. There are exceptions, however, if you've ever witnessed him parallel parking on West Street, as that same vehicle is approximately 2 feet from the curb. This is the good delegate who will argue with you at 11:30 at night outside his hotel room that a cell phone that you just found in his car at the request of his wife was not his phone. Technically, he was correct because that was apparently the cell phone he lost 2 years prior. Ciliberti is the only man that will invite you into his home only to be attacked and bitten by a Boston Terrier, a mutt that he refers to as Sir Edwin. He is the man who will remind you when answering his phone with a, "Yo, what's up?" that you are speaking to the good Dr. Delegate. He is the only gentleman I know that learned at the age of 5 to scour the dinner table after the festive Italian meal for those half-full glasses of wine. Some things never change. And the man that when contemplating running for another term was advised by his wife, if you do, there'll be 2 Cilibertis on that ballot. And she probably would have beat him. Delegate Ciliberti, with that glass of Johnny Walker Black, shaken not stirred, I salute you, I pray for your wife, and wish you many years of good health and happiness in your retirement, and we look forward to celebrating that 100th anniversary of your glorious birth in a few years. Good luck. Delegate.
Beautiful. Will the clerk please read the full resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Delegate Barry S. Ciliberti in recognition of your 16 years representing Montgomery and Frederick counties. We thank you for your advocacy, friendship, humor, and lasting impact. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 11th day of April, 2026.
minutes or less, Barry. It's like explaining your vote. 3 minutes or more.
Okay. If I had known this was coming, I wouldn't have shown up. But but I'll be very brief because we've got a lot of work to do. But I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I better end this before I have tears. So thank you. God bless. Oh, that might be it. You're very sweet. You're very competent, too.
The next one, I would like to recognize the delegate from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Of course, permission to use the delegate's name.
Permission granted.
Thank you to everyone. My speech will be a little more serious, so I apologize. Some of these have been very fun, but I'm just not that funny, so sorry.
You said that. No one else did.
Well, but when you say it, then they can't attack you with it. Anyway, Delegate Queen, Pam, my teammate, friend. It's a true honor to gather today to celebrate the extraordinary career of Delegate Pam Queen, or as I always introduce her in the community, Dr. Delegate Pam Queen. As she prepares to embark on her well-deserved retirement, we look back at a legacy defined by a rare and powerful combination: a mathematician's precision, a professor's heart, and a legislator's unwavering courage. Since she first stepped into the House of Delegates in 2016, Pam has been a personification of doing the work. With a PhD in finance, and a career rooted in academia at Morgan State, she just didn't participate in debates, she mastered the data. As chair of the Banking, Consumer Protection, and Commercial Law Subcommittee, she's been a fierce guardian of the people's pockets. She stood up to powerful interests to ensure that the average Marylander was protected from predatory practices, always proving her smarts when it came to the complex world of credit and commerce. But Pam's impact extends far beyond the ledger. She is a leader who turned her personal trials into public triumphs. As a breast cancer survivor, she took her own journey and transformed it into life-saving legislation, ensuring that mammograms and critical screenings were accessible for women across the state. She understood that policy is personal. Whether she was fighting for equal pay for equal work, advocating for the dignity of incarcerated individuals, or ensuring that hungry children in our schools were fed, Pam Queen has always led with empathy. She never forgot that behind every bill that she introduced was a family hoping for a fair shot. To our colleague, teammate, and friend, thank you. For your service to District 14 and the entire state of Maryland, you have moved the needle on poverty, stability, and justice. You leave this chamber better than you found it, and though we will miss your brilliance in the General Assembly, we know your influence will continue to be felt for generations. So as I congratulate you on your retirement, Delegate Queen, on behalf of this entire body, and of course, on behalf of the Dream Team, you, me, Delegate Bernice Miracle North, and Senator Craig Zucker, I want to say that you have truly earned the next chapter. Congratulations.
Congratulations, very deserving. Will the clerk please read the full resolution?
Be it hereby known to all that the House of Delegates of Maryland offers its sincerest congratulations to Delegate Pam Queen. In recognition of your 8 years of dedicated service to your constituents and the state of Maryland, we thank you for your advocacy and lasting impact. The entire membership extends best wishes on this memorable occasion and directs this resolution to be presented on this 11th day of April, 2026.
Madam Speaker. Excuse me, Madam Speaker.
Yes.
Permission to use the delegate's name.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the members, her sisters of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, we certainly acknowledge the hard work that she's done. In addition, she's shown professionalism as a treasurer for the Women's Caucus during my leadership, and she's been a stalwart member and dedicated professional with the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland. We honor you, we recognize you, and we salute you, and we'll miss you in the years ahead. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. I just want to say that, Delegate, you gave me the most beautiful letter from the heart that I found on my desk, that I read it 3 times because it was from the heart, and I want to say thank you. And there are people that are in the front that are always out there. There are people that are in the back. They work and never get the light, but they really do the work, and they're impactful, and you're one of them. And I want to tell you that. Thank you so much.
Oh, gosh. Well, thank you all. It's been a great honor to serve with all of you. I've Had a great time, served under 3 speakers, so it's been great to do that. I sent all the women a letter, so hopefully you all got that to make me to think about the things that are important to us to continue to do and to focus on. So it's been a great ride, and sometimes you know when it's time to leave, and I'm one of those people who know it's time to go. So thank you. Take care.
I am recognizing now the third item for resolutions, the delegate from Prince George's County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good
You're
morning,
welcome.
everyone. A few years ago, I started the April Birthday Caucus to celebrate those members born in April, the best month. Permission to use the delegates' names?
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam
welcome.
Speaker. So on behalf of, and this is not in any order, I forgot to write down the birth order, so please forgive me. On behalf of delegates Mangione, Polakovich, Carr, Solomon, McComas, Ruff, Martinez, myself, Lehman, Arentz, Phillips, and White Holland, as well as our 2 honorary members that we added last year, delegates April Miller and April Rose. There are cupcakes and lemonade in the back for everyone, but I also want to announce the creation of a brand new birthday caucus, and that is the interim birthday caucus to honor all of you, the 3/4. And that, Madam Speaker, that is the 3/4 of this esteemed body that was born outside of the 90-day session, and that includes the Speaker, who is a June baby.
I am.
And so we have a resolution that will be read by 2 interim babies. This is, of course, this new caucus is bipartisan, so if delegates Rose and Chi could share the interim birthday caucus resolution.
All right, recognizing the delegate from Frederick.
So it's me, the other April. Happy to do this. Permission.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Whereas the Maryland House of Delegates prides itself on the equitable distribution of recognition, cupcakes, and long-winded floor speeches.
And whereas a significant and forgotten portion of this honorable body was born during the interim, a period characterized by legislative silence, empty committee rooms, and a tragic lack of official birthday quorum. And
whereas these members are forced to celebrate their joyous milestones in the legislative wilderness of the interim, part of spring, summer, fall, and the stark of winter, and even the holiday season, without the benefit of a gavel strike or a recorded vote of happy birthday.
And whereas it is inherently unfair that a delegate born in February receives a standing ovation, while a delegate born in November, like me, receives only a notification from their dentist, and if they're nice, maybe a birthday card from Senator Jennings, or our Speaker Pro Tem. And
maybe I'll add my name to that.
And whereas science suggests that being born outside of session leads to a chronic deficiency in State House sheet cake and a heightened risk of being out of order during one's own party.
now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates that this body formally apologizes to the interim birthday caucus for the lack of floor recognition during their actual birthday months, and
be it further resolved that for the purpose of this resolution and all members born between mid-April and early January are hereby granted constructive birthday status, allowing them to feel as special as the session-born members, provided that they do not actually try to claim an extra year of seniority.
And be it further resolved that the House officially recognizes that while some members' birthdays may occur during the interim, their presence in this chamber remains mostly tolerated, and on this day, collectively celebrated. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Very creative. Thank you for gifting us a little joy, okay?
Madam Speaker,
Yes.
if the clerk could read the citation.
Yes. The clerk will read the full citation, please.
Be it hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to the interim birthday caucus in recognition of the overlooked members born outside the 90-day session. Their birthdays are consequential milestones deserving of celebration on parity with their colleagues, and we honor and salute them. Presented on this 10th day of April 2026.
Congratulations, everyone. Well done. On serious work now. And thank you, everyone, for just, bringing a little fun, recognizing the chair of the Rules Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
And as a member of the interim caucus, I'm very grateful to the body. But we do have to get down to business, and I have to announce that the Rules Committee needs to meet right now in the old House chamber to do some re-referral.
May I ask the Rule Committee to please be so kind and follow the delegate, the Speaker Pro Tem, who is right there raising his hand. Thank you very much. It won't take long. You could use this time to just speak for 5 minutes or so, okay? Don't go too far. If we have people in the back, may we have them come in, please? If you can have a seat, we're going to get started. Okay. Okay, we're going to start with the yays and nays. I'm going to wait a second. Oh, it's okay. We'll wait a minute. You owe me a chocolate. Where is it? You owe me a chocolate. Where is it? Because I did call you. Come on, give it up. Thank you very much. We're going to start with the yeas and nays. Number 12, House Bill passed in the Senate. The clerk will read the bills.
House Bill 1216, House Bill 1252, House Bill 1364, House Bill 1365, House Bill 1559.
House Bill amended in the Senate. House Bill number 339. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 339, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners, Chief Inspector, Compensation, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the committee. The chair of the Committee on Government, Labor, and Elections.
Thank you,
You're
Madam
welcome.
Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk slow while I find it. Here we go. Move to not concur with the Senate amendments.
The question before the House is to not concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are rejected. The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests that the Senate recede from its position. Said bill is returned herewith.
We're doing now a concurrence calendar, and for those of you that are looking for it, it's number 18. The clerk will read the first bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 512, Anne Arundel County Board of License Commissioners and Part-Time Inspectors, Compensation, Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The amendments conform the bill to how the House passed the cross-file. The amendment specifies the cost of living increases made for these individuals is the same as non-represented county employees and any county employees. We move to concur with the Senate amendments.
The question before the House is to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill number 512 is on third reading and final passage. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 118 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 512, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Thank you. Message from the Senate regarding House Bill 107. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 107, Motor Vehicles Intelligent Speed Assistance System Pilot Program, Establishment, Amendment number 1.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Allen Chair, Delegate Healy, and Delegate Jacobs. The Senate appoints Senator Waldstreicher Chair, Senator McKay, and Senator Charles. Said bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Senate regarding House Bill 153. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 153, Residential Rental Apartments Air Conditioning Requirement, Amendment number 1.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not recede in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Ambry Chair, Delegate Charkoudian, and Delegate Weibel. The Senate appoints Senator Smith Chair, Senator Waldstreicher, and Senator West. Said bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Senate regarding House Bill 769. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 769, State Board of Social Work Examiners, provisional license to practice social work, established. Amendment number 1.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not receive in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Coulson chair, Delegate Riley, and Delegate White Holland. The Senate appoints Senator Hayes chair, Senator Reedy, and Senator Lamb. Said bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Senate regarding House Bill 1063. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1063, Natural Resources Hunting Management, Amendment number 1.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not receive in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate Boyce chairman, Delegate Baylor, and Delegate Naraki. The Senate appoints Senator Feldman chair, Senator Hester, and Senator Gallion. Said bill is returned herewith.
Message from the Senate regarding House Bill 1118. The clerk will read the bill.
House Bill 1118, Health Insurance and Health Occupations, Perinatal Behavioral Health Conditions, Amendment number 1.
The clerk will read the message from the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House of Delegates, the Senate does not receive in the Senate amendments and agrees to a conference committee to confer the disagreeing votes of the two houses. The House has appointed Delegate White Holland chair, Delegate Riley, and Delegate Warman. The Senate appoints Senator Guile chair, Senator Lamb, and Senator Mount. Said bill is returned herewith.
Thank you. We are now going to go to report of the Committee on Economic Matters. Those of you that are looking for it, it is report number 29. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 94, Commercial Law Earned Wage Access Revisions, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 365, Security Guard Certification Renewal Requirements, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report is a report of the Committee on Government, Labor, and Elections. It is report number 43. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 498, Washington County Salary Study Commission, membership alterations, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 681, Worcester County Board of License Commissioners, membership, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 684, Harford County Alcoholic Beverages Class HC Health Club License Hours of Sale, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 700, Wacomico County Alcoholic Beverages Class B Golf Course License Hours of Sale, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 703, Caroline County Regulation of Animals, Dogs, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 802, Garrett County Alcoholic Beverages Act of 2026, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 846, Worcester County Alcoholic Beverages Temporary To-Go Event Permit in Class C, per diem municipal to-go beer, wine, and liquor license. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 897, Cecil County Alcoholic Beverages Alteration of License Quota. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Government, Labor, and Elections. It is report number 44. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 13, Alcoholic Beverages License Fee Refund Requirements Alterations. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 29, Election Law Petitions and Ballot Questions, Contents, Plain Language Requirement, and Procedures. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 53, Maryland Port Administration, Acquisition of Land in Anne Arundel County, Notice of Public Hearing. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 77, State Contracts, Prohibited Provisions, Exemptions. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 114, 311, Systems Expansion Program and Oversight Board Establishment. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 974, Caroline County Alcoholic Beverages Inspector. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Report of the Committee on Government, Labor, and Elections. It is report number 45. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 150, Notation of Veteran Status, Public Policies, Profiles. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 213, State Procurement, Transparency, and Procedures. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 426, Public Information Act, Divorce Records. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 443, Local Boards of Election, Board Council Qualifications. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 757, Economic Development Local Sourcing Database. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the minority whip?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Just had some questions for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Could.
The vice chair of the committee.
Madam Speaker.
Good morning.
Friend from Frederick. This bill's been heavily amended. So what does the bill do now as amended?
It requires the Department of Commerce to develop and maintain a searchable online database known as the Maryland Local Sourcing Portal to connect businesses in the state with local sources of tariff-impacted goods and other services.
Tariffs, okay. So I saw in the testimony there appeared to be some pretty fierce opposition to this bill from the business community, chamber, NFIB, Retailers Association. Are they still in opposition to this bill even as amended?
I believe that the amendments have addressed the majority of their concerns. Yeah, that's been confirmed. It addressed the majority of their concerns.
So they're all in favor now?
The opposition's been lifted. I don't know if they're in favor, but it's addressed their concerns.
And then what are we going to do with this report? Like, what's the purpose of this report?
Finding that for you here. This is just a way that they can identify the best sources of goods and products and services to that have been unaffected by the tariffs.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you answering those questions. I'm sure we'll have more discussion on third reader. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
You're welcome. Seeing no other questions, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The report of the Judiciary, it is report number 47. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 982, Mutual Insurance Holding Companies Conversion to Mutual Insurers. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 1003, Howard County Sheriff and State's Attorney Compensation. Favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the minority whip?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The floor leader could.
Floor leader.
So
the chair of the committee.
Good morning.
Good morning. I have drafted an amendment for this bill. Would it be possible to special order it to the next session today for that purpose?
Sure.
Thank you.
The question before the House is to special order Senate Bill 1003. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 1003 has been special ordered until the next session today. Thank you.
It's going weird.
The next report is the report of the Committee on Ways and Means. It is report number 41, for those of you that are following it. The clerk will read the first bill.
Senate Bill 607, Income Tax Subtraction Modification for Public Safety Retirement Income Amount. Favorable.
No, it is report number 41, and it starts with 653. House Bill 653. You have to give her a chocolate and give me a chocolate. I am eating them. And you know, I really don't like chocolate, but I'm eating a lot of it this session.
House Bill 653, income tax subtraction modification from public safety retirement income amount favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker. I move to special order this bill until a possible second session today.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
So the question before the House is to special order House Bill 653 until the next session today. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 653 has been special order until our next session today. The clerk will read the next bill, please. It's okay. We're having a little problem with our system, and that happens.
House Bill 1297, income tax student loan debt relief tax credit alterations favorable.
That's not it. The next one is 1297. It's okay. The system is a little possessed. So we just wait.
House Bill 1297, income tax student loan debt relief tax credit alterations favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please. Thank you.
Senate Bill 607, income tax subtraction modification for public safety retirement income amount favorable.
Recognizing the chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to special order this bill until a potential second session today.
Thank you. The question before the House is to special order Senate Bill 607 until a second session today. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Senate Bill 607 has been special order until the next session today. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 704, Maryland estate tax qualified agricultural property transferred to limited liability company favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. Clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 805, income tax student loan debt relief tax credit alterations favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Environment and Transportation. It is report number 25. The clerk will read the first bill, please. Thank you.
Senate Bill 556, water companies, sewage disposal companies, and water and sewage disposal companies, limited income mechanisms, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next one, please.
Senate Bill 649, electric vehicle fuel sold at retail equipment, requirements, units of measure, and fees, favorable.
The question before the House is the adoption of the favorable report. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Economic Matters. It is report number 30. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 335, landlord and tenant discrimination in housing for income-based housing subsidies and positive rental history reporting. Favor of the amendments. Amendment number 1.
Thank you. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move someone speak consider the reading of the amendment.
So ordered.
Amendment number 1 strikes the word utilities to limit income verification to the portion of rent not covered by the housing subsidy, and adds to the failure to pay utilities as a commercially reasonable and non-discriminating ground for a landlord to refuse to rent to a tenant with a housing subsidy. Move the amendments, please.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 937, Landlord and Tenant Residential Leases, Prospective Tenant Criminal History Records Check, Maryland Fair Chance Housing Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Moves to
welcome.
be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 does 3 things. Strikes a provision that made a violation of the bill an unfair, abusive, or a deceptive trade practice. Permits landlords under certain circumstances to consider specified convictions outside of the state, and strikes the requirement that the Office of Tenant and Landlord Affairs collect specified data related to complaints filed under the bill. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendment is adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 939, Bankruptcy Proceedings, Exemptions from Execution, Residential Real Property. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Moves to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 restricts the judgment exemption in the bill to bankruptcy proceedings and reduces the amount of the exemption. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is amended. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report is the report of the Committee on Judiciary. It is report number 46. The clerk will read the bill, please.
Senate Bill 16, Child Support Earnings Withholdings Limits. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Move so
You're
much
welcome.
be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 clarifies language, removes provisions that contain an erroneous percentage of 25%, and strikes references to voluntary impoverishment. Please move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third, actually is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please. Actually, no, it's a report of the Committee on Ways and Means. It is report number 42, and the clerk will read the first bill, please. It is House Bill 13.
House Bill 13, Income Tax Credit for 911 Specialist Retirement Income, supporting our 911 Specialist Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment
Madam
1.
Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments authorize a state income tax rather than a deduction for certain retirement income that is attributable to an individual service as a 911 specialist in the state, and sunsets the bill after 3 years. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1057, Education Artificial Intelligence Guideline, Professional Development and Collaborative Artificial Intelligence Ready Schools Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Good morning.
Good
So
morning.
much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions related to institutions of higher education instructional coaches, requires the State Department of Education to develop a rubric to evaluate AI tools, requires the department to provide specified job-embedded professional development on AI to educators, and sunsets the AI Education Collaborative after 2 years. Please move the committee amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
House Bill 1254, Education, Public Schools, Service Contracts, and Professional Development. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
welcome.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
Amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 strikes provisions related to professional development, establishes a policy to state to give preference to public school employees rather than contracting with the private sector, and provides exceptions to the preference. Move the amendments, please.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order printed for third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 148, Income Tax Subtraction Modification, Public Safety Employee Retirement Income, supporting our 911 Specialist Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader. The floor leader from...
Madam Speaker?
Yes.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments conform the bill to its cross-file House Bill 13 by authorizing a state income tax rather than a deduction for certain retirement income that is attributable to an individual service as a 911 specialist in the state, and sunsets the bill after 3 years. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order passed to third reading. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 193, Washington County Sales and Use Tax Exemption, Target Redevelopment Area. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
so
welcome.
much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments add records retention and reporting requirements concerning the sales and use tax under the bill. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is order passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 388, Economic Development, Delivering Economic Competitiveness and Advancing Development Efforts, Decade Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the Vice Chair of the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So much be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The committee amendments incorporate provisions from House Bill 898, the cross-file, concerning Maryland Economic Development Assistance Fund, Enterprise and Rise Zones, the research and development and film production tax credits and reporting requirements, alter the distribution of certain video lottery terminal proceeds, and strike provisions repealing the limit on the aggregate amount of tax credit certificates that may be awarded for a single film production activity. Move the committee amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 720, Education, Artificial Intelligence Guidelines, Professional Development, and Collaborative Artificial Intelligence Ready Schools Act. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So
You're
much to be
welcome.
considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendments place the bill in the same posture as HB 1057 heard earlier in this calendar. Move the amendments.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The clerk will be so kind and read the next bill, please.
Senate Bill 904, Education, Public Schools, Professional Development. Favorable amendments. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
so much
welcome.
to be considered the reading of the amendments.
So order.
The amendment number 1 is technical. Amendment number 2 puts this bill in alignment with House Bill 1254, as heard earlier in this calendar. Move the amendments, please.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are adopted. The question now is the adoption of the favorable report as amended. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The favorable report is adopted. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Hearing none, the bill is ordered passed to third reading. The next report, for those of you that are following, it is the report of the Committee on Rules and Executive Nominations. It is report number 8. The clerk will read the bill and the committee it is referred to.
Senate Bill 791, referred to Judiciary.
House bill amended in the Senate. House Bill 139. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
Senate Bill 139, Sales and Use Tax, Tax-Free Day, Veterans Day. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the committee chair of Ways and Means.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Ways and Means Committee moves not to concur.
The question before the House is not to concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are rejected. The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates will refuse to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully request the Senate recede from its position. Said bill is returned herewith.
House bill amended in the Senate. This is regarding House Bill 1611. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 1611, Property Tax Credit for Dwelling House of Disabled Veterans and Surviving Spouses, Income Eligibility. Amendment number 1.
Recognizing the chair of the Committee of Ways and Means.
Thank you so much, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
The Senate amendments repeal the income limit and credit percentages for the local option property tax credit for disabled veterans and surviving spouses. We do have agreement with the Senate, so we'll move not to concur.
The question before the House is to not concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are rejected. The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Said bill is returned herewith.
We're going to go to concurrence calendar number 19. The clerk will read the first bill and the Senate amendments. No? Okay. Oh, she's back. Can you cancel that and let's do another one? Let's do another one. We're going to do then House Bill amended in the Senate, House Bill 141. You have that one? Thank you so much for your patience. The clerk will read the bill and the Senate amendments.
House Bill 141, State Personnel Collective Bargaining Graduate Assistance, Amendment number 1.
Thank you. Recognizing the committee chair.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We move not
You're
to
welcome.
concur.
The question before the House is to not concur in the Senate amendments. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The amendments are rejected. The clerk will read the message to the Senate.
Ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, the House of Delegates refuses to concur in the Senate amendments and respectfully requests the Senate recede from its position. Should the Senate prefer a conference committee to confer on the disagreeing votes of the two houses, the House appoints Delegate Wells chair, Delegate Barnes, and Delegate Sullivan. Said bill is returned herewith.
Quorum call.
Madam Speaker.
Are there anyone in the back? Thank you so much, Bobby. And while we wait, can we please give a big hand of applause to the clerks? They're working so hard. It's a lot of work to handle all the bills and paper and the computer, especially when it's possessed and it's not working. So we want to thank you for your work. And while we're at it and we wait a minute, also the people in the amendment office today, in committee, thank them as well. Let's thank the troopers, everyone in our office, everyone that has gotten here deserves an applause. All the clerks, the pages, the amendment office, DLS, all right? And also our colleagues in the Senate and the governor's office for working with us, all right? Come on, let's keep it positive. Let's take this call quickly. There being 126 members present, the House is still in session. We're going to start with House third reading calendar. And those of you that are following at home, it will be number 143. And the clerk will read the bill, please.
House Bill 1602, Counties No-Cost Preventative Cancer Screenings for Volunteer and Retired Volunteer Firefighters.
So House Bill 1602 is on third reading and final passage. Is there any debate? If not, the clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? Does anyone care to change their vote? If not, the clerk will take the call. There being 127 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative, House Bill number 1602, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Now we're doing a Senate third reading calendar. It is calendar number 80. The clerk will read the first bill, please.
Senate Bill 255, Voting Rights Act of 2026, Counties and Municipal Corporations.
Senate Bill number 255 is on third reading and final passage. Are there any amendments to the bill as to its title? Is there any debate? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually, I believe the gentleman from St. Mary's County may have some amendments. I have some also, but I think it would be more prudent for him to begin with his first, if you would, if I could defer to him.
Absolutely. Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Doing well. I have an amendment at the desk. Amendment 663. 122/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading of the amendment.
So order.
This is a pretty simple amendment. I would hope the committee would accept. This whole bill talks about it and brings in a new term called polarized voting. And what this amendment does is it says that if a county chooses to have their commissioners at large, it wouldn't apply to them. And the reason for that is a county is a community. Everybody weighs in on their budget, on the laws that they live under. And what I think is happening, Madam Speaker, what I think is happening here in the intention of this bill isn't really about voting rights. It's about voting outcomes, voting results. See, there's some counties in our state, like the one I represent in St. Mary's, that has been breaking their commissioners out into districts for geographical purposes. So you couldn't have all 5 county commissioners living on the same street in Leonardtown. And they've been doing this for, I don't know, close to 180 years. Been long practice. But now there seems to be a push to use this system against the county to say that you haven't been using it for geographical purposes. You've been trying to do something else to disenfranchise and, as the floor leader said yesterday, dilute voting. Well, if you wipe out the districts completely, and there's counties that choose to do that currently, like in Allegheny, for example, well, you can't possibly have polarized voting because every person in the county, there wouldn't be any district lines. So with that, I'll move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
And thank you to the delegate from St. Mary's County for getting the amendment to us. So, colleagues, I am going to ask you to resist this amendment for a very simple and very obvious reason. At-large voting districts is and has been historically cited since the beginning of the VRA as being one method of vote dilution that exists. And for this bill to operate and function, there's 2 components that we look at for the VRA. Is there polarized voting that's happening in that jurisdiction? And is there an alternative voting method that would mitigate that dilution? One of the most common ways that courts seek when we see that minority populations are being blocked access to the ballot, that they will resolve or remedy that vote dilution that's happening where minorities do not get equal access to the ballot. The way we remedy that is by taking an at-large county and looking at whether or not that dilution can be resolved by making it into districts instead. It's just one solution of many that the courts have looked at historically. And so for those reasons alone, I would urge this body to resist the amendment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Southern Maryland. Good morning. You?
Good morning.
Yes. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well.
It's Saturday.
Thank God.
I have a question for the floor leader.
Floor leader.
Good morning.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Good morning.
You're welcome.
How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
Good. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So the polarized voting matter is interesting. I'm curious. You said access to the ballot. You mean what you mean is not access to the ballot. It's really whether or not an individual is elected of their choosing. Is that more accurate?
Well, whether or not the minority population's candidate that would have naturally been chosen
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so, for example, in a county that has a majority white population and a minority population that's relatively small and dispersed throughout the county, what this bill would say is well, because your choice of candidate didn't win based on the way they look, then we should have some sort of remedy. Is that what this bill does?
No.
I think that's what this bill does because it literally says under polarized voting, it means voting in which there's no difference in the choice of candidates other than the electoral choices.
Sorry, so to clarify, it's the preference of the candidate, not the race of the candidate. So.
Well, but it deals with protected classes, so.
Yep, which are defined in the bill.
So what is a protected class? I mean,
as defined in the bill, protected class means a class of voters who are members of a race, color, or language minority group or a class of 2 or more of those groups.
Okay. So if there is a county that is majority Caucasian and then someone from a protected class, which in this case would be someone who is black, is elected, would this bill apply? Could you sue and say, well, you know, there's a black person that just got elected in this majority white county. Could you still sue as a member of a protected class and say, well, that's not the person I wanted, even though they are part of a protected class.
So if you can show, again, the key word there is showing, polarized voting is occurring, then the individual is allowed to bring a suit forward for the court to then do an inquiry into whether or not polarized voting is occurring, and indeed minority voices in that jurisdiction are being subverted at the...
So help me on that then. A black individual is elected in a majority white county, and there still could be a cause of action because you don't like that particular black person who got elected? Is that what you're saying?
No, the court would take a look at all of the details, including not ignoring the fact that there is people of a minority class that have been elected to office, but they also look at the totality of that. How many, over how many years, and what are we looking at as far as those choices go?
Here's why I ask.
Yeah.
Because I represent a county where people are critical thinkers based on not the way they look, based on just the way they think.
And again, I just want to clarify that that black voters in your scenario might not be about picking a black candidate, right? You're assuming that one race prefers one race. That's not what this bill says, and that's certainly not the intent of the legislation or the intent of the VRA over the years.
I appreciate that because clearly that's what the bill does. But so here's where I'm going with this. A Republican black individual runs for sheriff and wins. And the black community, who is a protected class, says, that's not the black guy I wanted. Are you saying you can sue on that, given this bill? Because that's what you just said.
I don't believe that is what I just said. So,
well, can you or can't you?
Once again, you have to be able to show that there are polarized voting, and the issue is actually race neutral. The question is about the candidate and preference of choice. This has nothing to do with electing a black person to any specific office or a person of color to a specific office. This has to do with the preference of the minority community being subverted through the election or electoral process.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Madam Speaker, on this amendment, this is an important point. I represent a county and very proudly do so, and very, very proudly knock on every door. I could care less what the person looks like. I knock on their door when I run for office. And I live in a community in Calvert County. In my area, it's probably about 50% black, 50% white. It's remarkable. And individuals across the board, they vote for the person. And so this bill doesn't do that. And I brought up the sheriff matter because Calvert County had a black elected sheriff who was a Republican. And this bill is like, sorry, he's not the black guy we want. This bill would allow you to challenge that. It shows you how unprincipled it is. This is an unprincipled bill. It's a great amendment because there's an assumption that this bill makes. The assumption that this bill makes and that this amendment remedies is that people vote based on the way they look. I find that insulting because that's not our experience in Calvert County. Absolutely insulting. That is the purpose of this bill. This amendment remedies it. And we know it, you know it, I know it, the courts know it. It's like, let it go already. Let people campaign based on their ideas and the strength of their convictions and their beliefs, rather than the way they look. So for those reasons, Madam Speaker, I support this amendment. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the floor leader.
Madam Speaker, I will just drive it back to the amendment and all of the problems that exist with the amendment. I deeply disagree with and bothered by a lot of the comments that were just made here on the floor, but I'll leave that for third reader debate when we get to the actual bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the amendment. Yes. Reason why I joined this amendment like this, and this does really cut at the heart of my county, because a couple of years ago we did have a bill up here where my county was in the spotlight of it. And it was said that, well, because one district didn't get the outcome that they wanted, even though they didn't field a candidate, that was some type of a racial bias was applied. And that would be called diluting the vote and polarizing vote. This bill introduces a completely invented term.
Thank you.
And puts it in law, polarizing vote. And I think back to like history, especially in my county, 1978, St. Mary's County was only the 5th county in the nation to elect an African American sheriff. So given the scenario that my friend from Calvert laid out, because a minority group in the county might have disagreed with that result, and it falls under polarization of voting, they can now sue to overturn that result. That's insanity. This amendment fixes a very poorly attended bill. So with that, I move the bill forward. Thank you, or move the amendment forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Can I ask the maker of the amendment a question, Madam Speaker, if I may?
Sure.
It'll be brief, I promise.
Sure.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Is there a gentleman in St. Mary's County running for House of Delegates who is black and Republican?
Yes, yes there is, in 29B.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So the question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 89 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I got
welcome.
another amendment at the desk. Amendment 123-028/1.
Amendment number 1.
So be considered reading of the amendment.
So order.
So, friends, I think this is ironic. And if you don't believe what the intention of this bill is to get not fair voting, but different voting results, you only have to look at the title and who it applies to, counties and municipalities. It doesn't apply to state office. We just heard the floor leader denied and said that at-large voting is bad. It brings up tons of problems. Could be racially biased from a bunch of people here that are elected, for the most part, from at-large state legislative districts. What this bill does, and this amendment, is a little bit different. It says it draws in, not excludes, draws in all county school board races. Because we do have some counties that like to elect their school board members from an at-large district. I want to say, did Montgomery County ever change the rule on that? Because they used to do that. I'm not sure what their practices are now, but hopefully the gentleman from that area can straighten it out and answer that if school board races from deep blue Montgomery County are actually at large now, or did that ever change? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. The floor leader, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
the opportunity to respond, and thank you to the maker of the amendment for bringing it by and showing it to us. And listen, we had a discussion yesterday on second reader on school boards and some of the unique challenges that lie with our school boards. I think that there's certainly conversations that have happened, VRA conversations at the federal level that have happened for school boards. That federal avenue still exists for our VRA day in and day out that people have used to address vote dilution that has occurred at school board races across the country. However, I will say that some of the issues that we analyzed yesterday, that we talked about yesterday, was that school boards, some school boards have mixtures of elected and appointed positions. Some school boards, the school boards themselves are a function of the state, and so the state suing itself can be problematic. And so I look at your amendment, and while I appreciate that I'm sure it's offered in good intention, I have to ask the body to resist it because, again, we're looking at counties and municipalities. That was the purpose of this bill in the first place. We've outlined through the last 2 days multiple reasons why we need to look at school boards independently of that, and that we should pass this bill without adding on school boards to the process. And for that, I ask the body to resist the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Madam Speaker. Just in a quick response.
Sure.
Thinking about the hypocrisy that we have here now. We're going to force it on the counties, but we're not going to force it on school board races inside those same counties. So the floor leader's point is racial discrimination can happen, polarized voting can happen, but only in a particular race. It can happen in a county commissioner race, but it can't happen in a school board race. That is the most ridiculous thing that I've heard, at least so far today. I'm sure we'll probably be able to outdo that later on. I'm sure.
Let's not do that.
It is only 11:30.
I know. Let's keep it positive, okay? So what else?
What's good for the goose is good for the gander. And to me, if you're going to have a law like this and apply it statewide, why wouldn't every race from inside a county, especially those that are drawn up into district representation, but elected at large, which seems to be the crux of what this bill goes after on the county level, there's just no reason not to apply it to school board races other than you're trying to get a different outcome than what the intent of the legislation is. So, thank you, Madam Speaker. I'll move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. You're welcome. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 91 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the minority leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I have
welcome.
a few. The first amendment is 553021/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everyone in this chamber comes from a county. Baltimore City, obviously, as you all well know, is viewed as a county for our technical legal purposes, although it's also a municipality of historic significance. So everyone here could potentially have your local government be sued by someone who claims that the way your local government is doing something is wrong. That is, I believe, one of the primary reasons why the Maryland Association of Counties feels that this bill in its current posture is ill-considered. And what the amendment that I'm going to offer is a good faith attempt to ameliorate some of those concerns. If the Office of the Attorney General or an individual attempting to sue under this newly constructed, Maryland's been a state since the 1700s. We've been a colony since the early 1600s. We've never had to do this ever before, but we got to do it as an emergency right now, which is always what causes me some concern. If we've been moving along and things have generally been okay, and everyone here tells me how great Maryland is and it's the best state at this and number one in that, but then some terrible things have been happening in Maryland forever and we had to fix it tomorrow. That always makes me think logically, I don't know. But what our local governments would like is an opportunity through the political process, because that's who determines what your districts looks like or how you vote in a county or a city. It's not determined by the lawyers, and it's not determined through the wind. It's determined through the counties and the cities themselves, whether they have a referendum process, whether they have a legislative process. And they are political actors and public servants, many of them, particularly in small counties and small cities, getting paid far less than what we do, to work part-time to do their jobs. And what the amendment does is it creates essentially a 6-month cure period or safe harbor before the Office of the Attorney General or an individual can file suit claiming that the way you're doing your voting is somehow violating this newly constructed 2026 first time in history Voting Rights Act for Maryland. Why does that make sense? Because it does. Because litigation costs a tremendous amount of money and time. And so how the process would work if you accept the amendment is the Office of the Attorney General or the potential litigant notifies Allegheny County. I'll use my own county as the example so as not to offend anyone. They notify Allegheny County and they say, hey, the way that you're doing voting, we believe potentially dilutes votes under this newly constructed statute that didn't exist yesterday, you have 6 months to come up with a potentially new plan of how to vote. If your county commissioners, my county commissioners, take a look at it and determine, you know what? Go pound sand. We think you're wrong. We don't think what we're doing is a violation of this at all, and our citizens don't want to change. Go ahead and sue us, and we'll let the court decide. Then that is a choice that your localities, my locality, will have chosen to make, and the costs that flow from that will be associated appropriately. But if the Office of Attorney General or an individual comes up and says, hey, we think the way you're doing your voting is wrong and potentially violative of this brand new law, those individuals are colleagues in the counties, in the towns, in the cities. They get a very short period of time, 6 months, to be like, we've taken a look at it, we've considered it, we've decided maybe you're right, we're going to change. We have to pass a law, we have to pass a statute, we have to put it on referendum. We've decided to do that, and we've changed the way we're going to vote, and we don't think we're in violation of your law anymore. I am in the business of generating disputes for lawsuits. It's what I do for a living. It's how I send my kid to college, hopefully, eventually. And what I'm telling you, weirdly enough, is that this amendment will help to prevent future costly lawsuits and work against the good, hard-working men and women of the Maryland State Bar Association to create ways to make money through lawsuits. What it will do is be fair. Be fair to your counties, be fair to your towns, and say, hey, somebody's brought forth a complaint, someone's alleged you violated this brand new law, you get 6 months to change the way you're going to do things or not, and then after that, cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. That's the way it works. The amendment should be considered, it should be adopted. It's not partisan, it's common sense. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. The floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank the minority leader because I believe sincerely that he believes that that folks should be able to come together and work these things out. I'm still going to ask the body to resist this amendment, and I want to take a minute to explain why this is so important that we resist this amendment. You know, I grew up as a child up in Steubenville, Ohio, and my great-grandmother used to always say to me, because we actually had a hen house, you know, it's like letting the fox guard the hen house. What the minority leader's amendment would seek to do is basically say, well, if you have been in your jurisdiction diluting votes for minority communities for decades, and those minority communities, as I'm sure we will hear from, you know, a few folks on third reader discussion here later on, who've probably been saying to those communities for years and years and years, there is vote dilution happening, and we need to address it with appropriate remedies that have been used and stood the test of time for decades, that now we're going to have another conversation. We're going to say, oh, give you another 6 months to take a look at this and do the right thing. Instead of having a third-party arbiter come in and take a look at whether or not the vote dilution is happening, irrespective of the jurisdiction. I want to remind folks, the gentlelady from Baltimore County got up yesterday to reference her democratically controlled county council, as much as we talked about Wacomico County and their challenges in their county. The point is that the individual or the attorney general are able, through this streamlined process, to bring the question forward to the courts, which helps to save money, by the way, versus going through the federal process, which will cost significantly more money because of the complexity of the process, and we'll get an answer so that, to the minority leader's concern, if there is vote dilution happening, we have the response, and we know, yes or no, does the third-party arbiter, the courts, when they look at this, do the courts say that vote dilution is happening? Does the court say that polarized voting is happening? And does the court say that there is an alternative voting process that can be followed in order to remedy that polarized voting and vote dilution? And so I appreciate the minority leader's well-intentioned amendment, but this process is critical to addressing these real world, on the ground issues that happen in our communities. And I do not want us to deny for another day, I do not want us to deny for another day a minority community's right and access to voting. And so for those reasons, colleagues, I ask that you please resist the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
No one wants or should want to have some intentional discrimination or dilution of vote for a racial minority or ethnic group from not being able to be represented. I get the honor of standing in front of the room. I used to sit way back there, and when I talked, I mainly saw the back of your heads. But now I get to see you in the eyes, in the faces. And as I look around the room, I see the tapestry of America. I see people from a variety of racial and ethnic and social backgrounds. And I think that's good. I see people that we can identify with and we can learn from, despite the fact that we have significant historical differences in how we were raised and where we came from. And that's good. So that's not what we're talking about here. What my friend from Frederick County, the floor leader, is missing is that litigation in and of itself is not a collaborative process. It's not a mediation where the parties sit down. It's not an opportunity where the public gets to come in and comment the way a legislative bill hearing is, or the way a county council or county commissioners meeting is. Litigation, my friends, is adverse. In fact, we call each other the adverse parties. I don't call the majority party in this room the adverse party. I call them the other party, or I call them those who don't agree with me. But in litigation, you are adverse parties. In fact, when you're in litigation, there's a little thing called a V. Buckle V, the good gentleman from Frederick. Do you know what the V stands for? Versus. Versus. It means that you have taken a position that you are opposed, and you will fight with each other through the civil process until someone gives up or until someone, the judge, makes a decision. And so I think what my friend is missing is that simply because someone alleges something is happening doesn't mean that the court agrees and it is proven that it is happening. He is assuming that if someone in some county believes that they're being deluded and in violation of this law, well, then it's absolute. They believe it. The Attorney General believes it. Boom. No more discussion. We believe it. We alleged it. It must be fixed. The judge will do it tomorrow. And that's not how it works. I got news for you. Attorney General Brown is not undefeated in the courts of the state of Maryland or the federal courts of this nation. The Democratic Attorney General's Association, not undefeated. The Republican Attorney General's Association, not undefeated. I would give up all my days here if I could look up and say, Jason Buckle in the courts of the United States of America, undefeated. That would be awesome. But I'm not. I've had to lose a few times too. And so what all the amendment really wants to do is say, look, you've made an allegation. In good faith, give me as the elected political body of this county the chance to decide, maybe you're right, maybe we can change things. I can tell you what also is going to happen. 6 months. That's all we asked for, 6 months. The court case is very rarely ever going to be resolved and anything changed within 6 months. Almost never. You're going to file a complaint. They're going to get 30 days to respond at a minimum. They're going to respond. They're going to say no. The judge is going to schedule a hearing. The parties are going to do briefing. The judge is going to take time to consider. When the trial judge makes his ruling, highly likely it's going to be appealed. It's going to be stayed while appealed. You've heard that in prior debate from my friends from the Appropriations Committee playing law school with me. It's going to be stayed. You're not going to get anything done during this period anyway. That's the assumption of the bill that is in error. All I would ask is that you all represent counties, you all represent municipalities, and they're asking you for a chance to have their elected officials take a look at these things and see what they can come up with before we become versus, before we become take people's taxpayer money and use it for lawyers. Unless you want to hire myself or the gentleman from Montgomery County, maybe we'll take that. But I'm just suggesting that there's a better way to do this than rush to the courthouse with allegations. Move the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
The clerk will take the call. There being 89 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title?
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the gentleman from Cecil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I
welcome.
have a amendment at the desk. Amendment number is 493427-1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
And I wanted to start off by correcting a statement that I had made yesterday when this bill was heard about the population of the state. What I intended to say is that Maryland is now the first state on the East Coast to become minority majority, which is to say that the Caucasian population is under 50%. So just a clarification on that. As what we say on the floor here is important. This amendment actually is in the same vein that was offered by the gentleman from Southern Maryland, and I too believe that if we're going to do something, whether or not I agree with it or other members of this body agree with it or not, that we should do it right. And what this amendment does is it simply asks that a study take place, and the basis of that study is to look at these school boards, right? Because when it comes to school board, if you would have went back 30, 40 years ago, most of the school board members were appointed by the governor. As time has gone on, many counties have changed that. We've got hybrids, whereas some are appointed by the county executive, some are elected, some run at large, some run in district. There's just a whole bevy of options for school board. And it's nonpartisan. It's one of the races that are on the ballot that are nonpartisan. And I do believe that the committee, wrestled with this idea. How do we treat such a diverse group and still hold true to the bill and the intent of what we're trying to do? So what this bill does is it asks the Attorney General's office, in conjunction with the State Board of Elections, to just come up with guidance and report back to this body by December so that we can look at further legislation to better this bill for next session. With that, I'll move the amendment. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you,
You're welcome.
Madam Speaker. And first to my friend from Cecil, I want to say that I really appreciate the spirit in which you're offering the amendment. I know that it's sincerely held that our complications and frustrations sometimes at our boards of ed are real. I want to say to the members of the body that the reason I'm going to ask you to resist this amendment is actually not for what most people would think, which is not to just resist the concept. We have legislation currently sitting in the GLEE committee that we've been looking at, and we've been trying to work with our stakeholders to address this issue and this question legislatively for the last couple of years. The committee is continuing to do that work, and we have colleagues that are bringing forward bills to address this exact question, and we want to take a look at those ideas, and we want the committee to determine whether or not that it is necessary to bring forward as a formal study before we take any further actions. We don't want to simply put the cart before the horse here and put out a study before we're ready to have that conversation about how we can resolve or take a look at whether or not vote dilution and whether or not polarized voting is happening at our boards of education. And since we have those bills in front of the committee, and since we're actively considering and debating those issues even today, I encourage the body, therefore, to then resist this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the maker of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Just because we are here at the 11th hour, I do believe that this amendment is offered in good faith and will enhance the bill that, again, many of us may or may not agree with. And with that, I'd press the amendment. Thank you.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll, please.
Madam Speaker?
Thank you. Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 85 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title, recognizing the minority leader?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I have an
welcome.
amendment at the desk 183626/1.
Amendment number 1.
Move so much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The amendment strikes, if you look up on there, emergency.
Thank you.
It strikes the emergency nature of the bill that would make it effective almost immediately, and therefore it would apply to the 2026 elections, for which all of you have already filed to run, or many of you have filed to run. Some of you have filed to run for other things. Some of you are the smartest people in the room and have decided not to run for anything. And all of the people who have filed to run for county commissioner and city council and county council races, they've already filed to run too, in districts that have already been decided, because we have one unilateral filing date. Some municipalities are different, but for state and county and Baltimore City type offices, we have one universal filing date because we're governed by a state board of elections. So even if you want to run for county commissioner in Somerset County, the state board of elections also control some of those deadlines. And so I ask the question again. If this is such an incredibly important problem, and people have been discriminating against a racial minority group for years and years and years in Maryland, why didn't you do something about it last year? Why didn't you do something about it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Did it just happen in the last 6 months? No. No. So I suspect that what I will hear is we cannot go another day with allowing this to exist, but it was okay to let it exist last year, and the year before, and the year before that, and the election before that. If you make this an emergency bill, and next week it gets signed, and someone sues and says that your community's districts are somehow in violation of the brand new Voting Rights Act, you will create chaos in your local election systems. That's not fair. The boundary lines for this year's election are already drawn. The voting methodologies in terms of are you at large, are you by district, whatever it may be, for this year's election are already determined. You knew that when you came here January the 14th. Here we are, day before sine die. Let's roll a hand grenade down the hallway and see if it blows up on someone, as long as it doesn't hit me. All that it does is it changes the bill and says if you pass it and it gets signed by the governor, it becomes effective in January of 2027 and will apply to all future elections. I think that that's reasonable and rational for the local and municipal governments who will be most dramatically affected by the operation of this bill, and gives a little bit of collegiality to those individuals, to their bodies, that we do not come in literally after the filing deadlines and invite lawsuits on them to change the way that they do their business. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Move the amendment.
Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you to the maker of the amendment for bringing it forward and for this discussion about why this needs to be emergency legislation. I'm going to ask the body to resist this amendment as well, sadly. And that's because, simply put, we're watching day in and day out while at the federal level they are dismantling the Voting Rights Act. Year in and year out, we're watching it happen, and we're seeing it happen time and time again. The state is responding in real time to what is the real facts that are on the ground. We have seen active cases around our jurisdictions throughout our state where polarized voting has been shown and that vote dilution is occurring and that it needs to be resolved. Meanwhile, the federal government is acting like it's not happening. Meanwhile, these cases are being brought forward and successfully tried. And so the state is responding in real time. And so I know that the minority leader said, kind of prefaced or set up my message before me, before I was able to get up and say it. But I'm going to say he is correct. As we have looked and watched day in and day out exactly what is happening at the federal level, we are looking and saying as Marylanders that we need to respond and make sure that we are acknowledging that polarized voting can happen, that vote dilution can happen, and then allow the courts to make decisions about whether or not They can intervene before any election. It actually says in the bill that they will work directly with their colleagues, with their local boards, to acknowledge and understand the implications of the decision that they might make, whether or not it could work before or after any election, not just this election. But to be honest with all of you, the reason I would say to reject this amendment is very simple. Justice delayed is justice denied for all of our communities. And for that, Madam Speaker, I ask us to move red on this amendment.
Okay, recognizing the minority leader.
Gotta remember, hit that button, just like back here.
It's okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
There are no current Voting Rights Act case pending against any jurisdiction in Maryland. There are no current Voting Rights Acts. So when you say we have to pass this law because people are out there today suffering from voter dilution and they need a remedy today, and we're worried that the Supreme Court is going to change something with the Voting Rights Act 2 months from now. If they're out there today under the existing interpretation of the Voting Rights Act, why haven't they filed suit? There are no lawsuits alleging that St. Mary's County, for example, and the method by which they elect county commissioners is a violation of the Voting Rights Act. There are none. There's none alleging that Allegheny County, and the way we choose to do it, by solely having people elected at large, or Somerset, or Garrett, or other municipalities, there are none. There's not a single one sitting today. That's disingenuous to suggest that, hey, you know what's going to happen? Those evil sons of guns down there at that Republican-controlled Supreme Court are going to take away our Voting Rights Act, and we have to put one in ourselves to cure a problem that's existing today when there's not a single individual today in the state of Maryland that has filed an action under the existing Voting Rights Act that says, I've been violated. In fact, the actions that were referenced that were filed in, I believe, 2 counties, one in the Baltimore metropolitan region, one on the Eastern Shore, they were filed under the federal Voting Rights Act because there was no state one. And they were resolved to the satisfaction of the parties in a way that I believe the majority party would say reduced voter dilution under the federal Voting Rights Act, which is the way things have happened for generations successfully. I have no idea why we have to do this in an emergency basis other than the fact that maybe, I don't know this, but maybe there's somebody sitting out in the weeds that's just waiting until the bill gets passed, that's planning to file their suit in a friendly court and get the result that they want because they didn't think they would get a result if they filed suit 6 months ago, 6 weeks ago, last year. That's not a reason we should be legislating. All these folks, these localities, these counties are asking for is, if you're going to pass a brand new law that alleges we change everything, at least give us some time to respond to it. That's it. There's no reason for this to be emergency legislation and take effect next week. Move the amendment, Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam
I
Speaker.
saw you this time.
I know. Thank you very much. I
ahead.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I do have a couple of questions for the floor.
The floor leader, please.
Madam Speaker, thank you.
You're welcome.
So was the minority leader correct in that there are no active filings currently?
There are currently no active filings, and I appreciate the opportunity to just briefly expand on that. The process for filing a federal VRA claim is actually very, very cumbersome, and they talk actively about why this process is so cumbersome that it actually blocks a lot of people from being able to file claims in the first place, and is actually, when we got to the debate about the bill, I was going to mention to the body, one of the reasons we brought the legislation forward in the first place is because it's so cumbersome at the federal VRA level to bring a case forward when there are legitimate claims, and so this process actually does help that process become more accessible to the Marylanders in our community.
And that'll be great into the future. It'll make it more efficient, potentially. So my follow-up question to that is, since this is an emergency bill, it'll take effect after the governor signs it. Is that correct?
That's correct.
He could potentially sign it maybe Monday. So after Monday, if somebody wants to file, the question I have is, the early voting starts June 11th. Today is April the 11th. Is there enough time for this to go through the process and then have all of our local our elections boards draw up these new, because what we're talking about are mostly at-large elections. I think that's probably the most egregious situation that we're talking about here. Is that going to provide enough time for these local elections boards to be able to draw the new lines, print new ballots? I mean, we're talking about less than 2 months.
Yeah. Like like the attorneys in the room will teach me, I never deal in absolutes. So what I'm going to say is that, one, you have to have a claimant or the Attorney General identify the challenge and then be able to produce the evidence that would bring forward a legitimate claim. They would then go to the courts. The courts, as outlined in the legislation itself, will then take into consideration all of the evidence, the discussion, as the minority leader pointed out, a long, drawn-out legal discussion that will happen, or legal battle that will happen on the case. But the courts will actually take into consideration where that current election cycle is at, not just for this election, but for every election moving forward. And so if a claim comes in the spring of 2028, for this example, it might be the same question the court has to answer. Is that going to be a problem with the current election if we deal with the districts at this moment, or the question of vote dilution at this moment?
Will this process occur fast enough before early voting starts June 11th? Is it even possible?
I can't speak to the courts. It's very unlikely. And that's all I can say. It's extremely unlikely because you would have to produce a case. The courts would meet with the local boards, understand the impact and what we're talking about if we were talking about changing districts.
If it's highly unlikely, why is this still an emergency bill then?
Because again, it starts the process and allows individuals to not be delayed in their ability to look into whether or not vote dilution is happening. Whether that court case is resolved before this election or after this election is irrelevant. What is relevant is that people are able to bring legitimate claims forward.
We're talking about local elections here, county and municipal elections. Yeah. Most county elections are at the same time it's now. It's the same cycle as ours. So we have to make this an emergency so they can get this process started for the election 4 years from now?
Yes, because some of these cases, can drag out for years potentially, depending on how the court case pans out. But beyond that reality, again, if there's a vote dilution question that's happening or a polarized voting question that's happening, I don't want to delay the opportunity for people to bring those things forward as soon as possible, as soon as the governor signs that bill.
Right, so I think October 1st, if this were an emergency bill, October 1st it would go into effect. I think 3.5 years is probably more than enough time for this to happen. So I support the gentleman's
Madam Speaker.
amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Recognizing the delegate from Anne Arundel.
I too stand to support the amendment. We were told that we need to do this now because of the current administration, but this is the 4th year in a row we've heard this bill, 23, 24, 25, and 26. The first two was the Biden administration, so I don't understand why all of a sudden it's an emergency again. It's been the 4th year in a row it's been an emergency. I think we should do this with good governance and actually study what the actual outcomes and results would be if we implement this type of law. It's a very common sense idea. Hey, let's slow down and make sure we know what we're doing here. And for those reasons, I stand to support the amendment.
The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker.
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk, anyone in the back? We'll take the call. There being 86 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing, 1 second, there's a gentleman from Howard County.
I'm so passionate about the speaker, so Madam Speaker, I want to change my vote on previous amendment, 493-4271 to nay.
Make sure that you turn in your yellow slip, okay? Recognizing the young lady from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to change my vote on an amendment that was heard earlier, the Senate Bill 255 Amendment 553021. I'd like to be recorded in the nay.
Turn in your yellow slip. The gentleman from Carroll County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. For the same Senate bill, for the first amendment we heard, I'd like to be recorded in the green.
Do you know what the amendment number is?
Yes,
the Senate number?
663122-1.
All right. Any other vote changes before we proceed with the next amendment? Recognizing the young lady from Frederick.
Yes, thank you, Madam Speaker. So I'd like to change the Senate Bill 255 Amendment 123028 to nay.
Anyone else? Any other vote changes before we proceed? And I want to thank everyone for a very civil discussion. We've been at it almost an hour, and we're going to continue to allow it, not rush it, but I do appreciate the civility. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'm a little depressed. I thought I had garnered some support from my good colleagues from Baltimore City and Howard County. I was a little angry at the gentleman from Carroll County, but everybody got to remember, we're green on the amendments. You guys are red on the amendments. Everybody get that straight. I have another amendment at the desk, Madam Speaker, 513920/1.
Amendment number 1.
Oh,
Move so
Lord.
much be considered the reading of the amendment.
So order.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In yesterday's discussion of this bill, I believe the gentleman from St. Mary's County, I think I'm getting that right, had a discussion about how this does not apply to state legislative districts. Apparently, dilution of voting in state legislative districts, we don't want the Voting Rights Act to specifically apply to that. You can have differences of opinion about Chief Justice John Roberts. He has some decisions I don't necessarily agree with. But I think he said something that's very powerful. And he said the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. Really is that simple. Stop looking at people on the basis of what their skin color is. Stop dividing them into, well, if you're of this skin color, you must automatically think and act and choose to live in this way, and if you're of that skin color, you must automatically think and act and vote and choose to think in that direction. This amendment would expressly apply the provisions of the Voting Rights Act to the General Assembly, to us, to our legislative districts. And it would say most pertinently that an individual may bring an action against the state alleging that the legislative district is based on race and produces results where a racial or ethnic minority in the county where the legislative district is located suffers vote dilution. The gentleman from Cecil County brought up a point that many others have brought up many times and I alluded to earlier today a few moments ago. We are an extremely diverse state. The reality is that what many of you think is, I'm in the minority and I have been discriminated against, will no longer be true in the state of Maryland. The reality is that hundreds of years of our history of what is a majority group and what is a minority group will no longer apply, should not apply in the state of Maryland. Because we have reached the point of diversity where there is no one dominant group. What I would suggest to you that if in any county, any group is discriminated against because of the drawing of lines to say that, well, we're going to ensure that the majority population of that county gets all of the representation and the minority population gets none, that should be a violation of the Voting Rights Act. And I will suggest to you, my friend from Frederick, who I know is not an attorney, and I am not an election law attorney, I could be wrong. But when you pass this without these provisions, and when you say that only one type of folks get the benefit of this law, it will be challenged. It will not be challenged in state court. It will be challenged in federal court, and you will lose. And they will say that, wait a minute, in your state, with the tapestry of America that I see laid out in front of me, with the realities that Maryland has become a majority-minority state, you're not going to be able to use this to simply advance one group's minority position to get representation without allowing another group, who may be a racial or ethnic minority in your county or in your city, the right to claim, we got to have fair representation too. 33% look this way. We don't have anybody. We don't have anybody on the town council. We don't have anybody on the county council. That ain't right. We're suing. And if you take away their right to do that, you're going to have a problem with this law ultimately under the analysis presented by Chief Justice John Roberts, because whether you like it or not, that's the way the Supreme Court's going to look for the next several years. And so what I would suggest is, if you want the same rules to apply to everybody, adopt the amendment. Let this bill apply to your legislative districts. No one should be afraid of that. And let individuals have the right to sue if they believe that they have been diluted through a racial or ethnic group voting block in their county by the drawing of the legislative districts. So that you've drawn legislative districts throughout the whole county so that one group prevails over the other, despite the fact that there is a significant cognizable minority of one group, different group, in that county. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the floor leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
And
welcome.
The minority leader and I agree on one thing, which is those that stand with the committee need to be read on this amendment. The amendment is, so the amendment seeks to put in the Maryland General Assembly and remind people of the conversation that we had yesterday on the floor. We talked about the complexities of the state suing itself. We had a long conversation about why that would be an unfunctional process. But I want to elaborate just a little bit more and say a few more comments about why I'm asking the body to resist the amendment, which is that, one, there is a process by which you can still go through as an individual. If you experience vote dilution at the state level, you can actually bring a case through the federal VRA that already exists. That is absolutely available to you, and you're able to bring it forward and show that there is a vote dilution that is happening at a state level. We, through my study, have struggled to find any recent examples where that has happened. You know what I have found through our research is that we have had local jurisdictions and counties, municipalities, that have struggled with vote dilution and polarized voting across our state. And so I say that to say there's a logistical problem with the amendment, that is the implementation of it, but there's also a reality and on-the-ground problem that exists with this amendment, and that is that the maker of the bill, the sponsor of the bill, brought forward an idea acknowledging that problems exist on the ground in our counties and municipalities, with concrete evidence about how it actually has been happening over the last just few years. This isn't ancient history, folks. This is 2-3 years ago that this happens day in and day out. So, colleagues, for the logistical reasons and for the reality reasons, I'm going to ask the body to please resist the amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
That's not the posture of the amendment. The amendment says, I 100% agree with my friend from Frederick, the Attorney General cannot both sue the state and defend the state. That's why the amendment says an individual may bring an action. Because under the bill as written, it's not just the Attorney General. Now, I'd be a lot more scared if the Attorney General with his 5,000 lawyers brought the lawsuit as opposed to just a person with a regular lawyer. But under the bill against our counties and against our municipalities, an individual can bring the lawsuit in addition to the Attorney General. Under the amendment, it's only an individual. So that's not, an accurate way or an accurate reason to not support the amendment. It's a little bit like the Twilight Zone some days, because I just heard that the Voting Rights Act is extremely cumbersome for people to bring suits under. So my gosh, we can't expect these people to bring a suit against Allegheny County or Anne Arundel County or St. Mary's County or Montgomery County. We can't expect them to bring a suit under the Federal Voting Rights Act. It's too cumbersome. And, oh, by the way, those evil guys, those evil people down on the Supreme Court, they're going to get rid of the Voting Rights Act anyway. But then when I said, well, why don't we allow people to file suits about our legislative districts under the new, beautiful State Voting Rights Act, I was told, well, they already have a remedy. They could file under the Federal Voting Rights Act. The first thing you learn, honestly, litigating is it can't be good for me and bad for you always. At some point in time, everything's got to be neutral. And then you got to make a decision which side of the line you come on. You can't change the rules or the arguments to suit exactly what you want. I would just say to yourselves, we do it all the time. We had this debate in redistricting before. And my friend, my predecessor here says frequently, I really like a lot of you. And I got to be honest with you, there's no one in this room that I take any issue with. I have a tremendous amount of respect and affection. It's been one of the great experiences of my life getting to know people here on a level different than just what's the letter behind your name, D or R. But what I would say to you is stop changing the rules. Stop saying we have one set of rules for the feds and one set of rules for us. We got one set of rules for the county and a different set of rules for us. It's beneath you. You're better than that. You're smarter than that. You'll still win. It's not going to change the world. Just do what you would teach, I believe, your children, what I think you would tell your friends to follow. Treat people the way that you want to be treated. Have one set of rules that makes sense and live by them. And that's all that the amendment seeks to do. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. The question before the House is the adoption of the amendment. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The clerk will call the roll.
Madam Speaker?
Has everyone recorded their vote? The clerk will take the call. There being 88 votes in the negative, the amendment fails. Are there any additional amendments to the bill as to its title? Recognizing the delegate from Hartford County for the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I actually don't
welcome.
have an amendment, but I would like to speak on third reader, if that's okay.
Sure.
Just as long as nobody else has an amendment they want to offer. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I do have some concerns with this bill in many respects, but I also want to lay out, just for the body, I know we've talked a lot about how our laws often end up in court. This, of course, will be another law that likely ends up in court, and there are some real concerns about its ability to overcome what I think many portions of it, at least some portions of it, will be held to strict scrutiny, which we talked about yesterday. I do think that it meets the first one, which is that there is a compelling state interest. It involves protecting voting rights. So I think number one, we've met, but I don't think some portions of this law are narrowly tailored. And what the court is going to look at, I'm not a lawyer, I only play one on TV, but I can use a Google box quite well. And so in researching this law, potential law, there's a specific part of the bill that I think is going to run afoul of what the Supreme Court has already said is important. For those at home, page 4, at the very top, line 1. I'm going to read it to you. It says, the fact that members of a protected class are not geographically compact or concentrated may not preclude a finding of polarized voting or a violation of this title, but it may be considered a factor in determining an appropriate remedy. That line, that portion of this bill is in direct contradiction to the Thornburg v. Gingles case. It requires 3 prongs. The first one in that case from 1986 is that it has to be geographically insular. It has to be compact minority group, geographically compact. This bill actively deviates from what the Supreme Court in 86 decided was a requirement. So we are going to again pass a bill that violates what our top courts have already said is a requirement. We're going to ask our Attorney General and our taxpayers to fund this case, to defend this law that is very likely going to end up costing us money and not producing any results. I know I keep saying this, but we have got to stop telling people that we are remedying their problems with bills that end up in court that can't be upheld. It's the JV League, y'all. It's not a good look. I mean, this portion didn't need to be included. In fact, I think if it hadn't been, it might have a little bit better chance of standing up in a federal court once it gets to the top. So I would just discourage us in the future from passing bills that we know are going to end up tied up in court, costing taxpayers money, and in the end, leave the people that were promised remedy without any different remedy. They're still going to have to use the Voting Rights Act if they have issues. It's just, it feels disingenuous to me. I don't like doing it, and I hope that in the future, particularly in the next term, we'll stop doing this. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate, the floor leader, then the delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I'm sure many of my colleagues might want to get up and speak on this bill as well, but I just want to kind of close out my thoughts first by addressing the good delegate's concerns about Jingles, which is a 1986 Supreme Court case. So that's a Supreme Court case ruling specifically on federal statute to the VRA. It has absolutely no implications on state ability to actually pass its own version of a VRA, where it has its own set of policy prescriptions and the way that it addresses these questions. The issues of whether or not the population or the protected class is geographically compact or concentrated is an issue that has been debated time and time again. And we think that in Maryland, that it is important to acknowledge that vote dilution can still happen regardless of whether or not the community within that jurisdiction is compact. And so it's important that we acknowledge that. But before I sit for the final time, Madam Speaker, I just want to say about this bill, I mean, this is a truly landmark piece of legislation that we are looking at passing today, and every single member of this body should be deeply proud to cast a green vote on this bill. And the reason is simple. This is about whether or not we all have equity when we go vote, whether or not we are all equal when we go vote. From the passage, which we've been talking about this now for 2 days straight, from the passage of the Federal Voting Rights Act in 1965, from the passage in 1965, our government has acknowledged that we have made it, in some cases, impossible for people to elect representatives of their choice in minority communities. We have acknowledged time and time and time again, we have dozens, hundreds of cases that have been brought forward because of the power of that. And I see what's happening at the federal government with the Supreme Court right now, and my heart breaks. I was walking in this morning, I walked through Lawyers Mall, and I looked up at the statue of Thurgood Marshall, and I thought, my God, I wonder what he would think about what's happening right now and the gutting of minority rights to have equal access and opportunity to elect people. I wonder what he would think of what we are doing. And then I would think, I wonder what he would think about what Maryland is doing today. What Maryland, through this bill, is standing with its communities and saying that despite the federal government's attempts consistently to subvert our rights, that in Maryland we don't have to stand by and watch it happen. We are a branch of government as well. We are an independent body. We are capable of making the decisions as representatives of our community, of one of the most diverse state on the East Coast, and saying and showing the entire country it doesn't have to be this way. We can absolutely acknowledge that minority voters are subverted at the ballot box, that they lose through dilution their voice, and that people that, I'll give you a hint, don't look like me, struggle day in and day out. So colleagues, this monumental piece of legislation is so important to so many communities, and I ask you to look in your heart. Look at your communities that you represent and the beautiful diversity of those communities, and ask yourself, do you really want to continue to stand for and block that access? Because I don't, and I will proudly be voting green on this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the delegate from Prince George's.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You can sit and I'll recognize you guys, okay? Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'll try not to get too emotional about this, because I am that diluted voice. Everybody here has been saying that it's not happening here, but here I stand. And I'll tell you why. Because I have history under me. I stand on strong shoulders. I didn't come here just yesterday. In New York, we learned what it means not to have a voice. Maybe I'm aging myself. We had a meeting with Mayor Koch, and we asked him, why don't you answer us? He said, because you don't matter. And I said, thank you for letting us know. You are the last to report on the census, and you do not become citizens. We learned, we organized, we mobilized. We were the last. Now our community is the first.
Bring it down a little bit.
And because of that, I used those same techniques that we learned there, and I brought them here. I turned out my community during COVID, and I increased turnout 60% of the Latino community in my community. The least I could have gotten was a majority, minority voting district at the council. That's what I was requesting. At the end, some people have noted that's not what's reflected in the council now. But I'm blessed to be here because people in this room that just happen to be in those seats and care for the same communities I care for. Therefore, here I stand. That's why we've got to vote green on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland, then the gentleman from Montgomery County, okay? And I see everyone. I'm going to call you, all right? Just be patient. Let's listen respectfully. I will get to you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
So lots have been said about St. Mary's County and how they vote. Well, I'm the poster boy child for that. And I say that from the point of view that I was county commissioner for 12 years. In the last two elections, I represented a minority-dominant community. And in those last two elections, I ran unopposed. I ran unopposed because I was doing my job. I represented my community, big white guy in a minority-based community. It didn't matter. They supported me. And when I look at this bill up there and what we're arguing about, I become really concerned. You know, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I know I could do my job. I knew if there were qualified candidates out there, they would run. They would run against me, but they didn't. So when we go through the iteration of this bill, VRA 2026, I do become concerned because we try to put up the best qualified candidates. And there's 141 people who sit in this room. And you were elected because they believe you were the most qualified candidate. Not based on race, not based on being 6'6", not based on anything. So like I said, I'm going to be a red on this vote because I know what you're talking about, and I know how I represented my community and a minority-based community and kept getting elected. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the very patient gentleman from Montgomery, then I'm going to come to the Eastern Shore.
Thank you,
then I
ma'am.
will go to Western Maryland. I'm traveling really fast.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
How are you this morning?
Doing
Actually,
very well.
afternoon already.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
And I'm going to be calm, and I'm going to take a few minutes. I've been here 3 years, and I don't really speak on the floor that much, as all of you know. But as you can see from the board, I am the cross-file for this bill. HB 350 is our bill here in the House. And I wanted to give you a little perspective, everyone here, why I'm the cross-file and why the great senator asked me to cross-file this bill with him. Back in 1970, as we heard earlier from a colleague from Montgomery County, I decided to run for the position a vice president of the Maryland Youth Council, which was then Marvin Mandel. That was in 1970, and I was elected. But in 1971, the president took a job, and I became president. And in 1971, if some of you might remember, was the year that we were fighting in Vietnam. It was the Vietnam War, and what I said and my colleagues who were talking with the governor was that we didn't have the right to vote at the age of 18. So I led the youth, working with the governor, and do I have permission to use a fellow former delegate's name, Madam Speaker?
O'Neill?
Yes, well, Speaker Lowe, who was the speaker here, he, the governor, and I worked together to bring about a joint resolution with the Senate President to give the 18 years olds the right to vote in 1971. So the great senator from Baltimore County knew that, but what he didn't know was 20 years later, in 1994, I became president of the NAACP state of Maryland. And one of the biggest things we did in that year was we went to Snow Hill down on the Eastern Shore to protest the fact that there had never been a black elected official from the state of Maryland on the Eastern Shore to be in the county, to be here in the state house. So then, can I use the former delegate's name?
You may.
Yes. The great delegate Rudy Kane was elected because of the great work that we at NAACP and others did to sue. It took 4 years, but he did become the very first great delegate here in this house. So where do we come now today? 50 years later, and my good friend, the delegate, I won't use his name, we honored him this morning. 50 years I've been working with Voting Rights Acts as a youth, as NAACP president, now as a delegate. We had over 80 people to write letters and about 34 people to come to testify on this from all over the county. I mean, all over the state, but mostly from the Eastern Shore and Western Shore, Western Maryland, because they felt that they didn't have the great voting rights participation for all of the citizens of their counties. So therefore, you've heard from the great floor leader, excellent job, the great committee that did the work on this, that this is much needed today. 50 years ago, I had no idea that I would be standing here talking about voting rights again, but this time for those who feel that their votes have been diluted. So I simply say to all of you here, from my 50 years of experience dealing with different voting rights, that I'm voting green, and I ask all of you in a bipartisan matter, because the last thing I would say, the youngest member, and I won't use his name, we know who he is, of this delegation may have to come back again 30 years again for some Voting Rights Act. It seems like history is repeating itself over and over again. But today, we can make the difference. We can vote green, and we can pass this emergency bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
I oppose
welcome.
this bill for two main reasons. The first is actually the opposition of the Maryland Municipal League and the Maryland Association of Counties. And I've had some frustration with MACO actually over the last couple of years because they've supported bills with amendments that actually secede local control, which I couldn't understand why they did that. But the reason why is because they actually wanted a seat at the table because you can't oppose a bill with amendments. This one, they just outright opposed it. Both organizations opposed this bill. And I just want to remind the body that both the legislative committees on both of MACO and MML are represented by majority-minority counties, majority-minority municipalities, and they still oppose this bill. And here we are on this House chamber about ready to take a vote to impose our will on them on a new law that they don't even want. They're not even asking for it. And the second reason is that it seems like the problem that we're identifying, that we're trying to find a solution for, are at-large elections, mostly in our smaller communities. And the fix to that is and this is how we fixed Wicomico County, is we added 2 more positions, we created districts, and we made it easier for certain candidates to win because of their skin color. That in itself is racist. That in itself is racist. We can't create a position for somebody to make it easier for them to win based on their skin color. It should be the most qualified candidate to win every single time. And so that in itself makes this bill inherently racist. And that's the second reason why I'm voting against this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from Southern Maryland, then Baltimore County, okay?
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Voting against this bill, third reader argument. People disagree. That's freedom. But what this bill does is, the majority party just invented a term called polarized voting, meaning if black people or Hispanic people vote differently than white voters, which happens every day in society because people have different views and different values, suddenly your county can now be called racist and be dragged into the court. But we also learned through the amendment process that can't possibly happen on state legislative districts. It can't possibly happen at school board districts. That would be crazy. This is hypocritical. This bill isn't about protecting voter rights. It's about getting election and winning different elections and having a different election results. It's infuriating from the majority party or minority party. It's not right. For all those reasons, Madam Speaker, I'll be voting red. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County, then I'm coming to the lady from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And the
You're
good gentleman took a few of my points there, so I don't want to be too repetitive. I'll be quick. I am also a no on this bill, and it is a lot of it to do with many reasons. That last amendment, as he was just alluding to there, I mean, why would the General Assembly get a free pass from this bill? I believe that is ridiculous hypocrisy there. And just to further prove that point, I mean, if vote dilution based on race is bad at the county level, it's equally as bad when done by state lawmakers redrawing their very own districts. So that last amendment getting shot down, that says to me that this bill is not a landmark bill. It's not monumental, but in my opinion, it's simply political. It's not genuine. I'm voting no. Thank you.
You're welcome. Recognizing the gentleman, the young lady from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I stand to offer my reasoning why I'm voting green for this bill. Fortunately, I represent Charles County, which has shown diversity in its in its representation at the county level since 1982. However, in my neighboring county members in St. Mary's County, that has not been the case. I think that when we talk about people and representation and why they are supporting this bill in that county is because since 1990, there has not, the only county commissioner has been John Lancaster. That has not been the case since. There have been certainly members who are identified as diluted or protected members who have run and not been elected. When you think about the representation and diversity, it is needed. In our county, in Charles County, we have district representation, which allows, again, for diversity, for all voices to be heard. That is not the case in St. Mary's County. I respect the members of the delegation, but I believe that in terms of fairness and in terms of opportunities, a green vote for SB 255 is essential. Thank you.
May I speak quick in defense of my county?
Recognizing, 1 second, I was going to call on the gentleman from Southern Maryland right here in the middle, and then I'll come to you, okay? And again, we are from, some of us are from the same delegation, but we represent different districts. We have different backgrounds, right? We're different, and we're going to respect each other's differences.
Absolutely.
If I may, a lot of the explanations today is really explaining your vote, and I'm letting it be. I'm letting it be because it's an important bill for both sides. We've been at it since 11/20, and I'm being very generous in letting it be, right? Because we still haven't taken the vote. So I want you to remember that and give me the grace as well as we move on, okay? The gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yes, I do appreciate the debate to continue because I do think the debate is important. So I've already spoken about Calvert County previously on an amendment, but I do want to talk about the bill, the Voting Rights Act of 2026. And I think the minority leader spoke to this very well too, about how it only applies to counties and municipal corporations, but not to the state. Somewhat fascinating. The bill defines polarized voting, but really when I've read this bill so many times, and I spent a lot of time reading it again and again, what it really is a bill to polarize voters. And why? Why would you want to polarize voters? Because you'd want to polarize, at least Senate Bill 255 polarizes voters based on the way they look. Because it assumes that people are supposed to vote a certain way just because they look a certain way. Do you want to know why this is the case? Why I know this is the case with this bill and why it's so unprincipled? Because the supermajority in this House worked overtime to defeat a black Republican, Brenda Cham. Isn't that interesting? She looked the right way, but she didn't vote the right way, did she? And I spent 4 years in this House watching her, at least after she was appointed, watching her be incredibly principled in her beliefs, and the supermajority being very triggered by the fact that there was a single black Republican in the House. How awful could that be? And yet in my community in Calvert County, that's not unique. It's not unique at all. So shake your head as you may, your bill, this bill, talk about the bill, is about polarizing voters. It's not about polarized voting. You're the one that's polarizing them. Because I was raised, and I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of the principles in which I was raised in Baltimore, that we judge people by the MLK Jr. maxim. So proud of that. And this bill doesn't do that. And your actions to defeat Brenda Cham proves how insignificant and hypocritical this bill is. And if you want to talk about polarized voting, I've had an opportunity to sit in this body and watch delegations and the supermajority vote like the Politburo. That's polarized voting. You vote like the Politburo, I think, because it's every single time it's in unison. You know where the diversity of thought is in this body? It's in the Republican Party. We argue all the time. You guys know it. We do. We argue over all kinds of policy issues to the very minutiae of the policy issues. And we disagree. And you'll see Republicans put up green votes for some things and red votes for the others. We're the party that has the diversity of thought. You're the party of the Politburo. And it's so obvious because that's the way you vote. It's remarkable. And here you are with a bill talking about polarized voting that's really about polarizing voters. Just incredible, the hypocrisy. Anyone and everyone can see it. They can. They can. And as the more people see it, the more they're going to start laughing one day. Probably in all of our faces. Thank you, Madam Speaker. For all those reasons, I'm obviously voting no against this bill.
I am going to say something. I know some people wanted to get up after the last speaker because some things were offensive, and I've been saying no, that I will handle it. Everyone's vote here, it's our personal vote. As someone that belongs to the majority party, we have the same values. We do argue, we have discussions, but we have the same values and we care about the same things, right? We're not divided. So let's try to be respectful, please, because a lot of this is really explaining your vote, and I'm allowing this because I know your time for 2 minutes,
and it takes more than 2 minutes. So I'm trying to give you grace, but please use it wisely, not personally, okay? I'm going to recognize next a gentleman from Southern Maryland. The lady from Baltimore County will be next, who has been very patient. Gentleman from Southern Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I just want to offer a quick defense of my county here. I knew that if we talked long enough on this bill, that the truth would eventually come out. Good delegation chair for Southern Maryland kind of spelled it out for us. See, in Charles County, they're racially diverse because they have elected black people. In St. Mary's County, they have not. That's what the statement that was made, that's what was said. So let's see if there's some truth behind that. St. Mary's County was the 5th county in the nation to elect a black sheriff, and we did it in 1978. We elected a black county commissioner that was mentioned earlier, John Lancaster, I believe, in the 1980s. We've had a black African-American school board member under the same rules at voting at large since the school board elections were created in the 90s. St. Mary's County was carried by Michael Steele when he ran for the state, for U.S. Senate. In 2010, Charles Lawler beat Steny Hoyer in St. Mary's County. How about that? And since then, there just hasn't been any black candidates to run on the Republican side. Because, you know what? It's not about race. It's about ideology. And it's about values and solutions. And we look north to their other counties just north of us, and this is the reason why so many people located out of it, right? It's not about the color of your skin. It's about high taxes, insane less safety, less public safety, and less opportunity and a lower quality of life. So please don't damage my county and say, hey, you know what? We didn't get the right outcome here, so you must be doing something wrong, because that's just not true. But yet, that is what this bill aims to do, to make that claim against every county that decides not to have the predictable outcome of the majority party. For all those reasons, Madam Speaker, I will be read. Thank you.
You're welcome. The very patient lady from Baltimore County who waited a while.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I put this out there only because we've sort of skated around it. I look at the senator who put this bill out, and what was not said is that I am the one that stood in the middle in Baltimore County when he filed his suit. So the county used me, the NAACP.
If I can ask the lady to put the microphone a little closer. And some of us that speak very loudly don't put it too closely, but some of you that speak very...
I'll use my right hand.
Yes, thank you.
And the NAACP also used me for their side, because we had never had in Baltimore County, in Councilmanic 2, District 11, an African American, even though there were those who worked towards that end often. And when I decided to run for the school board,
thank you,
I was told to rethink that because I could not win in Councilmanic 2. But I did. And as the councilman from that district pointed out, on their side of the suit is that I won every precinct. But I did it, as the NAACP pointed out, because I was an anomaly, because I had taught for 9,422 years and taught everybody's child and their parents, etc. But still, there was a group that made a decision to run someone against me because they could not have me on the board representing that district. And the same, as much as I love my district colleagues, the reality is that their run is different, and that when I went to doors to knock in the Owings Mills part of the district, I think of one person who absolutely hugged me and cried. She said, "I never thought I'd see the day when someone who looks like me is even going to run." And we don't speak up because we think no one is listening to us. And I'm not going to use any of the words that have been used through any of this conversation, because there are people here that I truly care about. Even my summertime delegate. And that's what we're supposed to be about. But I need you to understand that we are still living in a time where these things do happen. And if nothing else happens, because this probably won't change your vote, understand that it is now in your heads, in your minds, and I hope in your hearts. And you know that how we look at people is still biased in many ways, and we need to process beyond that. That how I look, no matter what I did in my district, people still thought it important to put up someone who could possibly beat me because of the way I look. And I ran my race just like there were 25 people running against me. And I will run this one the same way, because now I'm here and I work hard, and that's why those people came. I didn't know why they came, but to say, you do the work in your district. And because I've had the opportunity to meet people and care about them that otherwise would not happen. But know that I fight every day that I'm down here with something that somebody puts in my face that hurts my heart. And only so far one has ever acknowledged it. And I sat on that board and had to have somebody walk me to my car and walk me to the building. And that's not how it should have been for the person who won all 10 precincts. So this is not a feckless, fruitless, reasonless debate. This is important because it is about where we still are. And you can't make it go away, and you can't say that it doesn't exist anymore. And you can't say because there are no cases that it is not important. So however you vote, please know in your very soul that some of us are still fighting the fight. And I'm an old lady and I've been in this storm too long, but I won't shut up. And I'm not going to sit down. And if before this I had thought about maybe dropping out, I will not now. Thank you.
The clerk will take the call.
Madam Speaker.
Take the roll.
To explain my vote, Madam Speaker.
To explain my vote.
Recognizing the lady from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To explain my red vote. I hope that all the green votes on this board think about this very thing in redistricting. There's a saying in the Bible, take the log out of your eye before you take the twig out of your neighbor's. Discrimination, barriers, disparities, and political participation. In my district alone, District 7 was a 3-member district. We had 3 Republicans in the Harford County delegation and 3 in the Baltimore County delegation. But to disenfranchise Republicans, it was subdivided. So you took 2 Republicans out of Harford County delegation to dilute our vote, and you took 1 out of Baltimore County to dilute our vote. So the high road is that you must look at the log in your eye when you disenfranchise Republicans with redistricting.
Madam Speaker.
I'm going this way. I'm coming your way in a minute, okay? Recognizing the delegate from the Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I rise today to honor persons like the former Delegate Rudolph Kane from the Eastern Shore and a gentleman named Billy Jackson from Salisbury. They put in lawsuits to make sure that there was a seat at the table at the county council, where I was the second African-American, actually the first African-American female to ever have a voice at the table. And it was necessary, and it is necessary even on today. As just in this seat I serve on today, I'm the first African-American female to serve out of 9 counties on the Eastern Shore. We have a voice. We have to be at the table. There is diversity of thought. And I've been challenged with so much, even diversity in my age as at the county council level. So please, today know that there's a reason why we fight. People have fought for us, and it is important to continue to fight. And that's why I'm casting my green vote on today, Madam Speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore County, then the lady from Baltimore County, trying to be balanced.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I want to explain my red vote today, and I just want to walk through the hypothetical. So if you have a district that's 90% Republican, and they both offer a candidate, let's say that's black Republican, black Democrat, the Republican wins as expected, and there could be a lawsuit filed in that case arguing the preference of candidates despite the overwhelming registration. And if that case wins, the courts could completely restructure your district. It also doesn't take into account practical political matters such as voter turnout that is mentioned in the bill. As we all know, as we've all run, if you have a year where people are unhappy with something controversial like taxes and there's low voter turnout, the percentages shift and you get a surprise result. Someone could claim racism assuming the preference of the voters, and your whole district could get blown up because of that. I'd like to provide an analogy. There's a reason giant corporations get tax credits and we can't get those for average people. It's because the strong do what they want and the weak suffer what they must. And all the power in this state is centralized right here in this body. And there are folks that just can't bear the fact that places like St. Mary's send conservatives here. We're already in the minority. And what we're doing with this bill is we're stealing the votes of those people. This bill is the Anti-Democracy Act. We should not attack the choices of candidates that people send for public office and give the courts the remedy to restructure those districts that have been structured by the people of those jurisdictions. This is an affront to democracy. That's why I'm a no today.
Recognizing the lady, very patient, from Baltimore County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm proud to be voting green on this bill. I wish that we lived in the ideal world that some in the minority think that we do live in, but we do not. There still exist racial disparities, disparities in protected classes that go back centuries and build on the redlining and the discrimination that has taken many, many forms. And so we do still need this bill. We do still need voting rights. Some in the minority have mentioned that polarized voting, and I think there's a misunderstanding of that. This bill does not enforce polarized voting. What it does is it says polarized voting is one of the tests that courts can use, and it is not a new concept. You know, and I also want to address that some in the minority think that this is a partisan bill. This is not a partisan bill. My senator, as I mentioned yesterday, was a party to a lawsuit when my county, a Democratic majority county council, drew maps that were, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker.
It's okay.
Drew maps that were racial gerrymandered and had to be taken to court, and they did it not once but twice. And so I am voting green on this because we do need. Thank you.
Okay, I am going now to this session of the House. Anyone here All right, this session, recognizing the gentleman from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
I'm voting green on this bill. In 1965, Martin Luther King led 600 people across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in my home state. And the entire country watched on national television as state troopers beat them senselessly with nightsticks. Right after that, LBJ said we needed a voting rights bill. And Congress overwhelmingly passed it in a bipartisan fashion. Unfortunately, and it worked. It worked for 60 years. It worked in a place like Federalsburg on the Eastern Shore, where for 200 years, a black population of 45% had never been able to elect anyone to represent them on the town commission. It worked. But now it's being dismantled. The Trump administration has fired 70% of the Civil Rights Division attorneys. The voting rights section, which used to have dozens of attorneys, now is down to 2. And the Trump administration has now dropped every single active voting rights case in the country. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court has done its part. They killed pre-clearance in 2013. In 2021, they basically killed Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And now, in the Calais case, they're set to completely gut it entirely. And so this bill is Maryland's answer. A simpler standard, a streamlined approach in Maryland courts that's easier to do, that no Supreme Court ruling can touch and no administration can defund. The people who walked across that bridge did their part, Madam Speaker, and I'm really proud that we're doing ours today.
Recognizing the lady from Hartford County.
Thank you so much,
You're
Madam
welcome.
Speaker. Again, folks, this bill is different than California and New York. They have had policies like this in the books for a while. I believe California's did make it to the Supreme Court in 2020, but they made no ruling on it, and the lower court ruling stands. But the makeup of the Supreme Court is different now, as all of you know. So this is an unusual time for Maryland to do something like this, because if this, and I assume that it probably will, make its way to the Supreme Court level, you're looking at a very different makeup and a very different situation. And so I think there is a much greater opportunity for this to be overturned than the previous laws. In fact, we're still waiting to hear back on what New York does. They just had an outcome in November. So we will see if that makes its way there first. But again, what I've learned on the House floor today, which I had suspected, was that it seems that the minority party, and actually even members of the majority party who are white, will vote for anybody and feel represented despite what color their skin is. They will vote for somebody who is of Asian descent, someone who is of black descent, and they still feel represented. But if you are a black member, it seems like the cases are exclusively about being represented only by somebody that looks the same, and I don't understand that. And I'm sad that people feel that way. I hope there's a day when that's not true. I know often I get phone calls from people in Montgomery County, lots and lots of Republicans.
The lady's time is up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Anyone else? For 1 second, I'm going this way. Anyone else from this session going here for Baltimore City, and then I'll come back where I started. Baltimore City Representative.
Thank you very much, Madam
welcome.
Speaker. Thank you, colleagues, for your indulgence. We've all been very patient over the last nearly 2 hours. I just wanted to explain my vote, something I don't think I've ever done. In 1944, my grandfather, George Rudolph Lewis, who was born in Chicago but raised in a little town in southern Illinois, Madison, Illinois, a brilliant man who attended University of Illinois in the 20s when he was one of a handful of blacks allowed to register there, became a math teacher and ultimately a school principal in Madison, Illinois, and wanted to run for the school board of Madison, Illinois. He put his name on the ballot. I actually have a photograph of that ballot from 1944 where he described himself as the first colored man to run for school board. He didn't win. He should have, but he didn't. This was 20 years or more before the Voting Rights Act passed. In 2018, I put my name on the ballot to join you here as a state legislator. I won my race in the whitest district in the blackest city in Maryland, District 46. My mostly white constituents chose me, but I was able to put my name on the ballot because of the Voting Rights Act. We have a duty to protect the rights that were fought for so hard with sweat, tears, and blood. That's why I'm a green vote. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else from this section? Recognizing the gentleman from Baltimore City.
Madam Speaker, thank you. Similar to the gentlelady from Baltimore City, many of you have heard me tell the story about my uncle in 1968. Shortly after the Voting Rights Act of 1965, he placed his name on the ballot in Cecil County. That was a very dangerous time. So he fought for many of us to have this opportunity, home bombed. I will say this. The Black Caucus started with 17 members. Had it not been for the Voting Rights Act, the diversity that we see on this floor would not exist. The federal government is pulling back, and we as the state of Maryland need to do what we can to continue to protect those who would seek office in our municipalities. And so I'm voting green on this bill. Thank you.
You're welcome. The gentleman from Baltimore City.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
The Sunday evening when the video of the Edmund Pettus Bridge was shown on TV, I was a high school student attending a high school that Elijah Cummings, a year behind me, would describe as his first opportunity to be in an integrated environment. Later that week, I was sitting in the same den, in the same house, when Lyndon Johnson spoke to a joint session of Congress to introduce the Voting Rights Act. And at the end of that speech, I can't do a good Lyndon Johnson, he said, "And we shall overcome." He walked up the aisle of the House, and I later confirmed this when I met Dick Goodwin, who wrote the speech, the husband of Doris Kearns Goodwin. I met him in Concord, Mass., the home of the revolution, our revolution. And I asked him, did Johnson on his way up the aisle say to Manny Seller, the chair of the Judiciary Committee at the time that would hear the bill, did he ask him to hold night sessions to expedite the hearing on the bill? Yes, Goodwin replied, he did. We are following in their footsteps by passing this bill. I urge a green vote.
The clerk would take the call. There being 94 votes in the affirmative and 35 votes in the negative, Senate Bill 255, having received a constitutional majority, is declared passed. Thank you, everyone, for a civil discussion. I hope you all felt heard. This ends the work at the desk for now. We're coming back later today. So, committee announcements. We're going to start with the wonderful Appropriations Committee.
No meetings this afternoon.
Following the same Economic Matters.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Economic Matters will have a voting session at 2 p.m.
The same for Environment and Transportation.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The House Environment and Transportation Committee will meet right after floor in the Silver Room or Caucus Room to take a quick concurrence vote.
Thank you. The same for Government, Labor, and Elections.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We will meet for a vote session at 2 p.m.
Same for Health.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Health Committee will meet for a voting session at 2 p.m.
Same for Judiciary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're
Judiciary will be meeting at 2 p.m. for a vote session.
The same for Ways and Means.
Thank you, Madam
You're
Speaker.
welcome.
The Ways and Means Committee will hold a vote session here in the State House, specific location to be determined, at 3:40 p.m. Thank you.
All right. The Rules Committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The Rules Committee will gather in the Old House Chamber 10 minutes before the next session. So listen for the time for the next session. 10 minutes before, show up in the Old House Chamber for another round of re-referrals.
So 10 minutes before we start, please be on time. Any subcommittee announcements? Seeing none, Any delegation announcements? Seeing none. Any caucus announcements? Seeing none. Any personal guest announcements? Recognizing the gentleman from Prince George's County. I was sending you to Frederick.
It's okay. I like Frederick
It's a good
as well.
delegation.
It's a good delegation.
It is.
I frequent their delegation quite a lot. Nonetheless, this is just a reminder for all of those that are participating in the Sneaker Caucus. We will meet on the front of the State House steps for our photo, and by the time you're in place, ENT should be done with their concurrence calendar, so they'll be joining us as well for those that participate. Look forward to seeing you all outside. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome. Any other personal announcement? Recognizing the minority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hope
You're
we'll
welcome.
be brief but sincere. While we did not prepare, certainly as a Republican caucus, a resolution in support of this individual as we've done, and I think that's wonderful that we've done that this year for those who have contributed so much to this body, to recognize them as they depart from it, because this individual may be leaving, but he's not going very far. But I wanted to take a moment or two to hopefully have this chamber express their support and admiration for an individual who has my complete admiration and respect. The gentleman from Anne Arundel County, who I believe, hopefully, at least from our party's perspective, will be crossing the hallway next year, but once sat in this seat for many years. He did an incredible job, not only in that role, but as an advocate for his community. He has been a friend to many of us here. He has been a sane, sound, and logical voice on many, many days, even, I think, on one sine die several years ago. And he is an example. He is a great father. He has been a great friend. He has been a great delegate. And if today is one of the last days that we have to cheer him from these seats, I hope all of us join right now. Permission to use the delegate's name, Madam Speaker?
Permission granted.
Today is the next to last day in this chamber for the Honorable Delegate Nicholas Kipke, and we shall miss him. Thank you, Nick.
You will be missed. You know we love you. I've known you for 20 years, and I appreciate our relationship. Thank you so much for your service. It's great to have a friend across the street.
Showtime.
Any other personal guest announcement? Recognizing the delegate from Western Maryland.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Over the last few days, we've recognized individuals that have served honorably and a long time in the House of Delegates as they conclude or make a change in where their service will be. If you'd asked me when I was elected at 28, I would not have guessed that one of my closest friends in the House of Delegates would become someone that was the age of 75 when he was elected and leaving the House of Delegates at 79. But particularly why I wanted to stand for him today and recognize his services. It's a lifetime of service that permission to use delegates names.
Permission granted.
Thank you. The delegate Jim Heimbaugh has served to his country, to his state, and to his county. So a quick story about Delegate Heimbaugh in his early life of service. So we've heard from the Veterans Caucus about his service in Vietnam, but most people, including me, didn't know this and were surprised to learn that when he enlisted and then eventually commissioned as an officer in the Army, initially he served stateside, and he was in a place where he was eligible to get out of the Army without going to Vietnam. And he called and asked to go to Vietnam at a time when it was very difficult in the middle of the war in Vietnam. And that speaks to his integrity, his love of country, his love of community, and his love of service. After he got out as colonel, he moved back home to Garrett County and continued his service as an economic development director, county commissioner, and ultimately coming to the House of Delegates. As we have recognized these lifetimes of service in the House of Delegates, I thought it was really important to acknowledge Delegate Heimbaugh's lifetime of service to this country, to this state, and to his county. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service, sir. We really appreciate you. That was very nice. Any other personal guest announcements? All right. So, quorum call, please.
Madam Speaker?
when you go outside, it is beautiful outside. Take a second to take the sun in. Has everyone recorded their presence? The clerk will take the call. There being 127 members present, the House is still in session. Let's listen, please, for the time to return. And remember, you have to show up if you're on rules 10 minutes before. Recognizing the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're welcome.
Move that the House stands adjourned until Saturday, the 11th at 4 o'clock p.m. Legislative date, March 28th.
4 o'clock. There's a lot of committee work. Thank you so much, okay? See you soon.